we are answering a question that so many of you guys have asked. What does it take to maintain a $31 million car collection on an annual basis? What does the maintenance look like, insurance, and things like that? So today, I'm going to share with you what it costs to maintain these cars, and we're going to get into a lot of different things. There's maintenance that I do that isn't necessarily required, but for me, the way I really try to enjoy and maintain my car collection is, think about, like, there's cars here we'll talk about that would be in very, very nice driving condition, and then there's people that maintain cars more on a concourse level that never really get driven. I want the best of both worlds. I want cars maintained that could be in a concourse level car show, but that I also drive and enjoy. So that does make it very, very difficult. It is very expensive. It's very time consuming. Sometimes managing these cars when they're in the shop, when they're getting work done, sourcing parts, especially on some of the older stuff, and things like that from around the world, gets to be very difficult and almost becomes a part-time job just trying to keep up with all this. But today we're gonna get into what we have invested in each one of these cars to maintain this car collection at a concourse level, but also driving them. Before we get into that, so many of you guys have had a lot of fun figuring out the references, the watches that I wear. I do have just as big a passion for collecting watches as I do cars, and today we're wearing the Patek Philippe 5905 Rose Gold. This is one of my favorite watches. It's absolutely beautiful. The blue works so well with the Rose Gold. Annual calendar, chronograph, two of my favorite functions on any watch. So with that, let's get into what we've got for each one of these cars. First up, we have our 2001 Lamborghini Diablo 6.0. This car has been absolutely amazing. I bought this car with about 7,000 miles on it. I've put about 3,000 miles on this car. I think this was really the sweet spot to buy this car. Yes, I probably could have found some example that only had maybe 1,000 or 1,500 miles on it, but this is a 2001. This car's 24 years old, and I think it had been driven 7,000 miles was just enough to keep this car so that the engine seals, ball joints, all the rubber gaskets and parts like that had not been dried out due to just sitting and being a garage queen, but it also wasn't a really high mile car where a lot of things were worn out and need to be redone. So this has been the sweet spot. We have spent $0 in a little over 2 years maintaining this car whatsoever. So it's been a fantastic car to own and enjoy. Next up, we have our 2015 LaFerrari. This car has been fantastic. I absolutely love driving this car. I have put over 2,000 miles on this car just in the year that we have owned it. I bought it with 1,870 miles a year ago, and we've put 2,000 miles on it since we've owned it right at a year. This car was supposed to have been fully serviced when we bought the car. I had assumed it had been fully serviced when we bought the car. I took and I tracked this car at Circuit of the Americas. Because the brake fluid had not been replaced, and there was a couple other things that had been neglected on the car due to time and age, we boiled the brakes on this car. We ended up running up a total repair bill of $48,000 to repair all the things that happened due to this car not having been serviced, and then we took it to its absolute limits on the track, assuming the car had been serviced. In addition to that, as you guys know, this car does have a hybrid battery. That battery is known to go dead on you. You just come out to the car one day and it's totally bricked. Ferrari does offer two solutions. You can buy an extended warranty. It lasts for about 2 years, so you have to put the car through a very extensive service, and then once you go through that service, they will allow you to buy that warranty. All in, all done, with the service and the 2-year warranty, that was another $41,000 that we just invested in this car. Now, the second solution is on its way. I have actually seen it myself at the factory. Ferrari does have a new battery that they have completely redesigned, and they're currently manufacturing in-house, so it's not through a vendor, that's going to replace the battery that's in the LaFerrari. They're calling it Ferrari Forever, which Ferrari says will permanently resolve the issue of this early technology hybrid battery. Moving on to our absolute beloved 1989 one-of-one Classic A certified through Ferrari blue F40. I absolutely adore this car. To me, it is the crown jewel of my collection for sure. The history's been well documented on it. It was fully factory restored in 2015. I have driven this car. I've put about 2,800 miles on this car since we've owned it. The only thing we've had to do, well, actually there's two things we had to do to this car. One, it has a very, very small Freon leak in the AC somewhere. We've had it charged. We put dye through it. We did find where the leak is. It was very minor, no big deal. I think all in all done, that cost me like maybe 1,400 bucks. However, the rear passenger side wheel did crack in 3 places. We have no idea what caused that. We just had the car detailed one day, came out, saw that it had been cracked in 3 places, did source a brand new OEM wheel. So it's new, old stock. It was brand new, never been used. They do offer refurbished versions of that wheel. I prefer to get a brand new OEM wheel. That was $12,500. Moving on to a car that has been featured on our channel very, very little to this point, and I'm about to tell you why, and it's about to disappear again. Our 1974 Dino GTS. This is such a really cool car. I fell in love, my wife and I fell in love with the color of this car, the design and layout of the car. We did a complete all new suspension, brake system. We had the engine completely rebuilt and the gearbox completely redone on this car. All in, all done, that was $57,000 on this car. We also had the dash completely redone with the original factory mouse hair material, very difficult to find. But so the interior is in great shape. The engine, gearbox, and suspension are all basically brand new, and the paint is in very good condition. As I said earlier, I want to make this car a concourse level car. You know, 10, 15 years ago, you could buy this car for, you know, $75,000, $80,000. As you guys probably saw there on Bring a Trailer, a Dino just recently sold for $1 million. So they have tremendously increased in value, and we bought this car, I think, at the right time. We got a good deal on the car. I've got plenty of room to make the investment, and I think still have a lot of value to go. So we're actually about to send this car to Italy, to Zanassi, which does a lot of the restoration work for Ferrari. They're the ones that restored our blue F40 as well. They are the creme de la creme when it comes to that. I think we're going to spend about another $100,000 having a frame off restoration, new paint job on the car. Every nut and bolt where it's got a little bit of surface rust will all be polished. This car will come back from Zanassi literally in brand new condition. So all in all done, we'll be about $157,000 into the restoration of this car. Next, we have our 1995 Ferrari 355 Spider. I truly enjoy driving this car. It is an amazing driving experience. The sound from that flat plane crank, old school V8, there's nothing else like it. I do consider this the best sounding car we have in our collection. Everyone knows that about every 3 to 5 years, you've got to get an engine out service done on this car. I had this one done about 3 years ago, so we're getting close to that being due again. At the time, we went through the car, engine out, went through everything. I think I had a AC compressor that had to be replaced as well. A couple other minor things, water pump and things like that, but ended up being about $12,000, and we're probably getting ready to have to do that again. Getting into our 2011 Ferrari 599 GTO. Absolutely amazing car, one of my favorite front mid-engine V12s from Ferrari. This car, we have put about 2,000 miles on it since we bought it, maybe 2,500 miles on it since we bought it. All that we had to do to this car, ball joints. Just due to age, the ball joints, the rubber starts to dry out, the suspension kind of starts to sound like it's banging together, and we had that done. All in all done was about $8,000. Moving down the line to our SVJ Roadster. Now, this car obviously still relatively new. We've not had any maintenance to this car other than scheduled maintenance, which is covered under warranty for this car, but I did decide to customize this car. We went with the Gentani exhaust on this car. All in all done for the exhaust and installation, labor and everything, about $23,000. And if you've heard the sound of this car with that Gentani exhaust, it's worth every penny of it. Next, we have our 2024 296 GTS Ferrari. This is a brand new car. We did track it at Circuit of the Americas. It's an absolute beast on track. This is really probably one of the best cars Ferrari has made since the 458. But 7-year maintenance is covered by Ferrari, so we spent no money on this car to own and enjoy it we've had it for right at a year. Our 2005 Ford GT. Absolutely one of my favorite analog driving cars of all time, and it is robust. It is definitely built Ford tough, that is for sure. The only thing we've had to do to this car, I did go ahead and preemptively put a new clutch in this car. It wasn't completely worn out, but it was getting towards the end of its life. We had a engine temperature gauge that needed to be replaced. I knew that when I bought the car. It took us a while to find the gauge. Once we finally did, figured the car was already in the shop. Let's just go ahead and do the clutch at that time. So clutch and that gauge, labor, everything was about $6,000. Our brand new, gosh, we've only had this car for, what, 3 months maybe? 2024 SF90 Spider. Again, it's a brand new car. We've only put maybe, I don't know, 400 or 500 miles on it. So no maintenance whatsoever. So it's cost us $0 in maintenance to own this car. Oh goodness. Our 1995 Ferrari 512M. Ferrari only made 75 of this car for the US market. And I bought this car. It had already won platinum at Cavallino back in 2007. The car was in amazing shape cosmetically, and it ran and drove good. Actually ran and drove perfectly fine when we first bought it, but as you know, I drive these cars the way they were meant to be driven. And shortly after getting the car, we showed the car at Cavallino, it won platinum. Shortly after getting it back home, I got to really start putting the car through its paces, really revving the car out and using it, enjoying it. And it started having some of the faults that you would expect with a car at that age that had not been driven very much, because this car really had been more of a show car until we bought it. And boy, she gets driven and driven hard these days. So we had to do a complete engine out on this car. Seals and gaskets were all dried up. We were getting oil down into the piston heads of the engine. We spent $48,000 having the engine completely torn down, redone, and having everything else, service and maintenance on the car. We got the car back. I got to enjoy it for about 2 weeks, and one of the fuel pumps shorted out on us. We went ahead and ordered 2 new fuel pumps for both sides. Parts and labor was about another $3,000, but the car's in perfect condition, runs and drives amazing, and we could pull it to Cavallino tomorrow, and this is still a 100-point car. Next up, we have our 24 Ferrari Purosangue, brand new car. Now we have had this car in for like early production stuff, that some kinks and quirks that need to be worked out, all covered under warranty. Again, 7-year warranty from Ferrari. So unless something outside of the warranty breaks, I don't see us having to spend much money at all in maintaining this car whatsoever. Same thing with our 2024 Lamborghini STO. This is a really amazing car. The Huracan is one of my favorite handling Lamborghinis of all time, and the STO is the epitome of that for sure. But it's a brand new car. We spent $0 in maintenance on this car. My 1989, very much so beloved, 1989 Lamborghini Countach Anniversary Edition. This car is a Euro car, which means it has, rather than being fuel injected, it has the Weber downdraft carburetors. This is the one you want to have for sure. The carbureted cars have about 40 more horsepower. They sound even better than the fuel injected cars, and they're much more rare. Now, this car only had 3,200 miles on it when we bought the car. Again, it had sat in some very large car collection over in Dubai, and we got the car. It had the beauty of a concourse level car, fit and finish of a concourse level car, but had not been driven, and we knew I was going to drive it. So we spent $24,000 refreshing everything rubber on the engine, you know, gaskets, hoses, spark plugs. We rebuilt the carburetors. New ignition box, they're known to fail on this car. Servicing the air conditioning. Believe it or not, the air conditioning in this car blows ice cold, which is really fantastic. But I got the car out, started driving it. After about 1,500 miles, I noticed the front end on this car just got really sloppy and was kind of moving all over the place. And sure enough, got it into the shop. Because of age, the complete suspension was just starting to crumble. Every rubber part you could find was crumbling, ball joints, tie rods. We had the shocks completely rebuilt. And then, of course, same thing with the engine. The engine mounts, they're made out of rubber. Because I was driving and enjoying the car for the first time in, I don't know, 30 years, the car had really barely been driven. The engine started sagging out, so we had the engine mounts redone. We had to repair the parking brake because the engine had come down on the cable for the parking brake. And then there were 3 seals that started leaking. Fortunately, we were able to access those seals and replace them on the engine without having to do an engine out. And that cost us about another $18,000. Our 2015 Ferrari 458 Speciale A. Again, I've said it and I'll say it again, the greatest Ferrari of modern times, no doubt. Mechanically, this car has been truly fantastic. However, all Ferraris from this era, we've all probably heard about the sticky buttons need to be replaced. What you don't think about, it's not just the buttons that need to be replaced. Yes, a lot of guys only replace the buttons because that's the surfaces they're touching frequently, but this car is already well over $1 million. It will only continue to go up in value. I will never sell this car. It'll be in our collection forever. So I wanted to maintain it again to a concourse level. So every surface, the rear view mirror, the piece above the dash, piece behind the dash, the instrument cluster, all those parts are made of that same material that breaks down over time. All that had to be replaced. That cost us a little over $17,000. And as you can see right now, the rear view mirror is hanging from the cables. Well, when they mounted that rear view mirror, because the back of that housing had to be completely refinished, they didn't mount it very well. The glue came off and we got to get it back in the shop this week and get that repaired. Moving on, we have our 2009 Ferrari 16M. This actually is one of my wife's favorite cars in our collection. This car had been maintained really well when we bought it. I've put about 2,400 miles on this car since we bought it, and we have put $0 in maintaining this car. It's been a wonderful car. Now, there are a couple things that are about to be done to this car. The front clip we've got, just because of age, we've got some paint that's cracking on the sides of the front clip that's really well known to happen on these cars. So that's about to get redone. And then the headlights. These headlights, all Ferrari 430s, including the Scuderias and the 16Ms, these headlights were known that the gaskets fail and then they get moisture inside the lens and it fogs up. To get a new set, it's about $16,000. We could have done that when we got the car, and I thought long and hard about it. The dealership strongly recommended we didn't do it because they said, Lewis, you spend $16,000, you'll get new headlights, and within a year, maybe 3 years, maybe 5 years, they're gonna fail and they're gonna fog up again. So you're really not getting anything in terms of a good long-term investment. I do know currently, about 3 months ago, a good friend of mine also has a 16M, and we confirmed he bought the very last new OEM headlights from Ferrari, so I can't even get new OEM headlights anymore. There is another process by which they can heat these headlights up to the point that it loosens the glue and they can pull that lens off, clean on the inside, reseal it. However, it's well known for either cracking the lens or the plastic while they're trying to heat it, and then you've got a problem, and now I can't get OEM headlights anymore. Or even if they are able to glue it back together, it weakens the plastic on the inside that goes around the headlight and turn signal there. And it's very well known that some period after you have that done, you'll hit a bump one day and that plastic will crack because it makes it fragile after being exposed to such immense heat. Next, we have our 2004 Ferrari Challenge Stradale. This car's got about 7,600 miles on it, 2,000 of which I put on myself. I love driving and enjoying this car. It is amazing. This is the nicest spec overall I've ever seen of a Challenge Stradale for sure. And we have spent $0 in maintenance on this car, so it's been a fantastic car to own and enjoy. That brings me to our 2005 Lamborghini Murcielago Roadster, my very first exotic car I ever owned. I bought this when I was about 28 years old, sold it. I actually traded it in 2012 when the Aventadors first came out, because at the time I couldn't afford to own more than one exotic car of that level at a time, so I had to trade it in. We bought this car back a couple of years ago. This is the exact car that I owned when I first owned it. This is the exact same car. When we bought it back, it had really been neglected in terms of maintenance. There's some things that we did do that we didn't have to do, but I, again, wanted to restore this to a concourse level car, especially this car because it has so much sentimental value to me, knowing that this is where my exotic car collection really all started. I've got a picture of my kids in this car when they were 4 and 6 years old, and they're 18 and 20 today. I was able to recreate that photo with them now as teenagers / young adults, but we spent $241,000 fully restoring this car, and I mean it needed everything. Even these headlights, they had fogged up just due to age, and the black casing on the inside had kind of turned like a milky white color. $25,000 just for 2 new headlights. The frame above the windshield, the black frame there, had a dent in it. God only knows how that happened during the time that I didn't own it. We had that replaced. The interior was in really bad shape. The stitching had been all faded to almost like a whitish pink color. It was really terrible. Carbon fiber that goes around the center console was beat up. The center instrument cluster didn't even work anymore. It had electronic problems. So we replaced every bit of that, ripped all the old interior out, all new interior, new instrument cluster, everything else we talked about, engine out service, new clutch, suspension, had the brakes redone, everything completely restored on this car. It is literally like a brand new car to this today. Now, max, you're gonna get about 7,000 miles out of a set of tires on one of these cars, but so I might hit that every, what, 3 or 4 years. Even if I don't, tires age out. You got a 6-year age life on tires. And when you've got cars that are this high level performance and you're gonna drive them to that level, you don't wanna be going 140, 150 miles an hour on a tire that's 7, 8 years old and have tire failure. That would be absolutely awful. These Pirelli doesn't make them all the time. They're not readily available. What Pirelli does is they wait until enough orders build up in their ordering system for them to justify a production run, then they'll produce them. They'll produce them in a very low amount. Everybody gobbles them up really quick. And because there's such a low production, they're very expensive. We spent $4,800 on 4 tires, plus mount, balance, and an alignment. It was about $6,000 to get fresh rubber on this car. On top of those expenses, we've got to insure this entire car collection. We're with Hagerty. They are by far the best in terms of insuring exotic cars of this level. I spend $88,000 per year on insurance through Hagerty. That sounds like a lot of money. When you break it down, it's about $3,800 per car. Of course, that's not an exact math, but you look at the value of some of these cars and you look at what we're insuring all these cars for. There's what, $31 million worth of cars in this car collection. $88,000 is a lot of money, but all in all done, it's pretty darn good. I try to drive a different car every 1 to 2 days. So on average, we have a mobile detail service. They come out here every week. On average, we have about 4 cars per week that need to be washed. Some weeks we have more, some weeks we have less, especially if we've been traveling or doing our Ferrari Challenge racing and things like that. I'm not away, I'm not driving as many. But looking back on it, we average about 4 cars a week, $150 per car, and they go through everything, the interior, engine, tires. They do a great job. It's a full detail. So we're spending about $31,000, $32,000 a year on car washes. Facility, this is a 5,000 square foot facility. As you can see, it's getting cramped here. I think there's 2 cars that are not here today on my wife's Rolls Royce, Cullinan, and then our 1994 Camaro. Those cars are not here today, but 5,000 square foot. It's starting to get a little bit tight here, but if you're gonna have a car collection this size, there's a reality, there's gonna be an expense with that. That's however that works out for you, so I didn't wanna put a number in on that. And then also, when you have cars like this, you wanna go to events, you wanna ship them to rallies and things like that, you're always spending money on transportation. For example, we just sent the Dino and the F40 to Palm Beach. Well, no, we drove the F40 out to Palm Beach, but to get those cars back and get the Dino there, we spent about $9,000 for an enclosed transportation, getting that from Florida back to Texas. And we're doing events all the time throughout the year. Those are expenses that'll be at your purview and at your leisure of how you, or at your prerogative on how you decide to use your cars. But it's gonna be a reality. If you have cars like this, it is a reality of the expense. So there you have it. That is what we spend on maintaining the Gentleman Garage car collection. Again, we're trying to maintain the cars at a concourse level, but also drive and enjoy them. Those two definitely conflict, because usually there's guys that collect cars and they keep them on a concourse level, never drive them. Then there's guys that drive cars and they just accept it's gonna have some wear and tear and rock chips and this and that. I'm driving them, I'm just not accepting those things, so I'm maintaining this level, but that's what it takes to maintain a car collection at this level. Hope you guys learned a lot, hope you guys enjoyed it. I know it's an eye-popping number, it is what it is, but it's for my passion, and I'll see you guys in the next video.